Thanks for your good response to. That was good. Well, it was like I read it and I just.
Yeah.
So Doug, read this, we can deal with it, and before we even get up with it, you did a much better job.
Good to
so-
go.
Oh, good. I like it. Good explanation.
All right, good evening, everybody. Let's start this meeting. Let's call to order. It is October 12th at 7 PM. Kay, could you do roll call, please?
Jay Engstrom,
Here.
Nicholas DeFrank. Is absent. Jeff Davlin,
Here.
Nick Missione is absent. Kim McGee is absent. Jarrett Mark. Kay Giannetti is absent. Jess Robeson here. Cindy Saplesio.
All right, thank you, Kay. First item is the approval of the minutes for September 14th. Do we have enough people at this meeting that were at the last meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody have any comments regarding the minutes?
No, it looks good.
Thank you, Kay.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Next item is public comment for persons not on the agenda. If anyone in the public has something to present to the commissioners, please step up to the podium. I'm guessing all you guys are here for the item later on. So with that, we can move on to the next item, which is that item would be the play area revisions to the A&B music mixed use project. I suppose, Jared, do you want to kind of introduce this?
Yeah, just real briefly, at your guys' last meeting, the planning commission recommended approval of the combined application with an additional condition to review the dog park and play area, given some of the safety concerns and appropriateness of the design for this area that were raised at that meeting. And so the applicants have gone back and revised it, and that is provided as attachment B. I'll let the applicants go through and talk about the design. Just real briefly, the proposed design doesn't impact any of their required areas. So they meet all of their minimum areas. So if this is an acceptable design to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we would recommend the motion to approve, which is on page 2 of the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm assuming Doug and Julie would probably be more able to answer those.
Questions for staff? Jeff, Jarrett, you guys good? Cool.
Yeah, no questions for staff.
I did have a question or just more of a clarification, I suppose. So discussions tonight should mainly just stay in regards to the items of the playground, correct?
Correct. That's the only thing that's been presented as a change from the last the last recommendation. It's that playground. It's really just that kind of southeast corner.
Yep.
So if there are other comments, I'm sure you can share them with the applicant, but that's really the focus of this review.
Sure. Yeah.
And I am sharing the proposed plan up on the screen for everyone.
Oh, perfect. And then just one other clarification. We've closed the public hearing on this earlier, so there's no more.
Correct, unless you feel a compelling reason to reopen it.
To all the public that wants to discuss this, yes. Well, then I guess with that. Hi, Doug. Hi, Julie.
Aye.
How you guys doing?
So, yeah, our team is here. Tony Spires from AB Bank is here, Will Cofield, who's owner representative. Kyle Sanderson is here from Cypress Engineering, Julie there from the Land Studio. So,
Would you guys turn on Doug's mic, please?
folks online to.
Mike,
I'm sorry, is Roman online?
I believe he was,
I
yes.
can't see. Okay.
I am. Yep.
So, all of this
You guys
for
hear me?
discussion. So just a little bit of is this okay if I start? You good? A little bit of just a summary from the last discussion. In our last plan, we had a play area that was contiguous to a dog, kind of a dog park area that was in a fenced area. The two fences were kind of adjoining each other. There was some concern from planning and zoning about the proximity of kind of free dogs in a fenced in area next to a playground and what that interaction might be. Asked us to go back and kind of take a look at things. So we kind of came up with the plan that you see on the screen. Julie passed them out in front of you.
And also asked her to make some commitments to the play area, a little bit more than just calling it play area.
So we kind of went back, put a concept together, which you have in front of you. The concept shows both the play area. We're really kind of trying to call it a kind of a pocket park. I mean, it's a play area. It's also a sculpture area. It's also some seating. It's also some dog areas that are outside of the park area. So with that, you can see the plan. The play area will accommodate a couple of, I don't know if you've seen these types of sculpture playground equipment before, but it's a good product. ID Sculpture is a good company. I think they're actually utilizing this in some of the other new projects in town, not these exact pieces, but nonetheless, this company. They also warranty their materials. They have specifications for safe fall zones for kids. All of that's specified as opposed to us coming up with our own equipment, our own pieces and then having to determine all of that. So the ID Sculpture pieces that are kind of examples of this product are in the back. The examples that you see in the back of the handout are actually the two that are shown on plan with the fall zones around them. So there's safe zones for all of those structures. We're required to have 400 square feet of play area. We probably have more than double that, just so you know, because really doing 400 square feet with fall zones that are 6 feet around a piece, it doesn't leave much room for a play area. So with that, the art area is shown kind of as it was before. Seating benches are shown kind of in the context of play area and the sculpture area. And rather than the dog park, we decided it makes sense just to do, for folks who have dogs in this facility, dogs would have to be leashed. And if they want to take them on a walk on the bike path, or if it's like go for a poop walk or a pee walk, there's a dog waste station there. They can get a bag, they can go for their walk. There's trash can there to dispose of the waste. So rather than having an area where dogs can just be free within a fence, we thought, okay, keep them on leash, provide a waste station for them, provide some grass area if people want to walk around on it, but they have to be on leash. They can't be let loose into a dog run area. So with that, we also came up with a planting plan. The plant symbols are kind of the same as what we had on the previous plan. I think, Jared, you provided the previous landscape plan, which has that legend on it for what all of those plant symbols mean. So Julie's also here to the landscape plan. So if you have questions about those, we can certainly answer that. But that's it. Yes, that's good. So so we're here to answer questions, take comments. I guess I'm going to say one more thing. The thing that I would propose is that if you find this acceptable, we would update our overall landscape plan prior to the town trustees meeting, get the legend revised, get everything on one page. We kind of focus just on this piece for this meeting, but we would have it all update our landscape plan to show it all on the one drawing for the next meeting. Does anybody else have anything over there from our team? You guys good?
Great. No, thank you, guys. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I have a few, I guess.
Get after it.
So I'm just kind of curious about these sculpture things or whatnot. Are they just meant to be sort of like climbed around? Like I don't really see how they're like a play thing more than just like a sculpture. If you could
Sure.
talk about those a little bit.
Are you familiar with the ID Sculpture Company? They are only a child play structure for playground. They're a playground manufacturer. So what they do is create different sizes of climbing. Some of them are considered bouldering. Sometimes some of them have ropes connected. They have some of it at
The market.
Montessori school.
Oh, yeah.
Montessori school has one. Marketplace, I've seen that they have theirs. They have some boulders stocked, ready to go. They're not in place, but it is specifically designed for children to climb on. That's what it is. So
Okay.
it's meant to be more passive play, but you know, in our experience, when you put in swings and slides, they don't get used. And so I think this is an alternative to let kids clamber all over it and sit on it and but yet it looks good too. It doesn't look like a blue slide and a red swing.
Yeah, I agree. And from they're a concrete material, is that correct?
They are a cast material. I'm not sure if it's concrete or if it has some kind of fiber cast in it. But it is a cast material and yeah, acceptable for kind of kids to climb on. So
Nice, but yeah, I mean, they're not plastic, like the
right,
ones that you see over at like Gianetti. So
right.
that's great. I like it a lot. What was the decision for adding so much more vegetation over in that area? It looks like the play area is a little bit more suited to these two sculptures, but it still seems pretty limited. I just want to know the direction of that approach.
Well, sadly, there's not really, there's not going to be more room for another sculpture in that play area, just because the fall zones for all these, like we said, it's already a lot larger than the 400 square feet that's required, but the fall zone for these, for any play structure is just so large that there's not really going to be room left over. We felt like it would be for adults who are taking children there, we felt like it would be somewhat of a nice garden experience too, if it's surrounded by some nice landscape while you sit and wait or watch, or, it may not be a place that's just for children. It may be a place that's for all ages to kind of sit and relax, and more landscape is always a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not dogging it. I just wanted, were we blocking a view? Is it privacy? I just wanted to know what the direction or the thought behind it.
I think it is trying to provide a little bit of separation from the, there is a fence around the play area, but I think also a little bit of shrub, perennials, trees that also provide a little bit of a separation between kind of the 133 side of the project is an okay thing for that play area. So just a bit of separation there, and also to make it feel a little bit more like a garden versus just a fenced in play area with with nothing else around it.
And my final question, thank you for answering that, by the way, is there some sort of lighting that we can expect in here? Kind of going through a tight corridor here between buildings and trees, just overall feeling of safety and security. I'm just wondering if that's been addressed in here, if there's any sort of lighting that's not the, parking lot overhead lights or anything like that.
Right. I do think the lighting plan did focus on the photometrics for the parking, for the parking area, which includes the sidewalks that surround this. I don't know that and on the building, I don't think we anticipated having lighting in the play area. I was kind of also anticipating that the play area is kind of like many parks in town. It's kind of a dawn to dusk kind of. So we're not lighting it to attract people into it at night. At least that's my kind of perception of what we want to try and do with the lighting.
Okay, and is that lighting plan on your guys' previous submittal?
It is.
Okay. That exhausts my questions, guys.
Thanks, Jared. Jeff, do you have anything?
Not at the moment. Thank you, Jay.
All right, Cindy, Jess?
Good.
I did have a couple of things that I just wanted to mention. Was bummed I wasn't here for the first meeting. But thank you. I do agree. I think this is a much better use of the space than having it than a small dog park and a small play park. I think that opening this space up to all this, it really turns it into a little mini park, which is awesome. And the planting is also really nice. It does create a nice little secluded little space, especially just given that it's so close proximity to the highway there. I think that I really appreciate the landscaping there. One thing I did want to ask about was the CDOT native seed mix and the seeded grass were both redlined in the big drawing. And I guess I wasn't sure which ones were getting, if those were getting, one of those was getting taken out or if one of those was being implemented. I guess, could you just clarify that a little bit?
Sure. We presented this to the tree board, and at that time, the town arborist or the tree board, I can't remember. It was the tree board. Said that that strip that is the CDOT right of way has to be CDOT specific native seed mix.
Okay.
So I think that we changed it. That's why it's bubbled. We changed it to the CDOT mix label on that. So.
Okay, so then right when it makes it to the property line, does that then change to like a shorter kind of sod grass?
I think
or
that's the intent.
That's the
Yeah.
intent, okay.
That would be mowed, maintained, and to all of us or to anybody else, no one may ever know the difference between where that line is, but if CDOT says we need to have their mix on their part, we'll do that.
Sure.
Their section.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess my question would be then, you know, I don't think I would be opposed to kind of the seed mix kind of extending onto the property, just because, I mean, minimizing the amount of grass that is being cut and being watered a lot, just because it's a kind of an area that, you know, not many people, especially that further south little corner, I don't even see how you could access it if you were to want to like take your dog out on it or something like that. So I guess that would just be my one comment, is that you know, maybe that area doesn't need to be you know, a manicured short grass lawn. It could be just native seed.
Maybe Will should weigh in on that, whether or not they'd want it mowed and manicured or not.
I think you can find a nice low water resistant seed, probably Julie, seed mix that we can do there. And I know there's, whether it's a continuous CDOT mix or you can find a nice native mix that maybe isn't quite as tall.
Sure.
Or a person could walk their dog through there. But I agree, I don't necessarily think we would need turf, but maybe keep that a continuous seed mix so we can find a, you know, nice low water use.
And would you mow it
Um,
or would you not mow it?
well, it'd be nice to, where it's not 2 feet tall, you have 2
Yeah.
feet tall, you have to go through, but if we could maintain that at 6 inches or so, so
Uh-huh.
it's, you know, a high mow once or twice a season.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I believe the CDOT stretch, they do end up mowing that several times a year. So, you know, we can keep it down a little lower, so it's not, you know, getting crazy or anything like that. I guess I wanted to see just like a nice transition
Right.
from the right of way onto the property. And yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure
can look
you-
at the mix of the CDOT mix and look at a low grow mix and just see. I really don't know if it's kind of maintained in a similar fashion that most, you know, that most people would know. I think also it is, as Bill was saying, just allowing dogs to get out onto an area. I mean,
Right.
we had a Velcro dog that if it walked through a field, it had everything in the field stuck to its fur. If we want to encourage dogs to use an area some people, like it to be a little bit lower. So, but I think we can work on that, a low grow native mix and the CDOT mix.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, I know you guys want to make it look good as well, so
Yeah,
I'm sure that you guys will find a nice way to have it transition between the two,
Yeah.
so.
yeah.
That is. Oh, do we have, I'm not sure about the planting that is on the east side of the play area, the one that says CH. What type of tree is that?
Hawthorn, a small
Hawthorn.
hawthorn.
Oh, okay, cool. Do we have, I was wondering if we have any evergreens on the planting list? Just because I was thinking that on that stretch right there, having some full season blockage.
There's two small Tannenbaum that are sort of not nearly as big as a spruce or as tall as a normal pine tree. They're a variety of amugo, but they're vertical.
Okay.
Amigo pine.
They'll be kind of 4 feet tallish and eventually 6 feet tallish.
Sure.
That kind of thing. So,
Perfect.
okay.
There's 2 Ts.
The 2 Ts right there. Awesome. Yeah, no, I guess I just wanted a little bit of blockage from the highway for the off seasons a little bit.
It'll probably be more interest than blockage at
Mhm.
that size. It'll just provide some green in the, some green and some texture in the winter time.
Totally.
So, and we do have evergreens in other parts of the project too.
I guess with that, that's all I have. Do we have any other questions? All right. Well then, I don't know, do you guys all feel good about this moving through then?
Yep.
Yeah. Jeff, Jarrett, looks like you guys are content. I mean, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Fair motion.
We gotta find the
for-
There
language of
is,
it.
I'm trying to. Still getting used to diligent.
I think Jared might have it. If he doesn't, I do.
I got it.
You got it? All right.
Okay. Motion to approve the revised play area and pocket park plan. That addressed condition 14 of the P and Z recommendations to the Board of Trustees for the A and B mixed bank or A and B bank mixed use project.
I'll second.
All right, Jarrett made the motion, Jess seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Hi.
awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
guys
all.
so much.
Safe drive.
Safe drive. Where are you driving to?
Oh, back down to the front range.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Safe drive.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
All right, well, I guess next we have the action item regarding the impervious lot coverage code text amendment.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So, at the August 24th meeting, this was last discussed in earnest, and I think we had some really good comments and some divergent thinking, right, about simplicity versus more regulations. But I felt like kind of the overarching theme was we don't want to have as involved regulations that say Aspen has, and we want to have something a little bit more simplistic and easier to implement. And so kind of with that, we went back to, or staff kind of went back and looked at the regulations and tried to simplify while still having some tangible regulations that can be applied for kind of the pervious paving. One thing we did hear from, I think, nearly everyone was that roof overhangs, just as a principle, shouldn't be counted towards impervious lot coverage, but With that being said, very large roof overhangs that cover decks, patios, things like that still should be considered. And so you'll see in attachment B, and I can pull it up here. I can share my screen again. So you can see in attachment B that we still have the three options. But within each one, we clarified that the buildings are measured from the outside walls, not included any roof overhangs. We still kind of modified and kept new option or new subsection E, which talks about covered decks and patios, uncovered decks, extending it over impervious surface, and still adding a little bit of clarity to what areas are counted as impervious lot coverage. And then again, still have option one as the very simplistic, removing all of the exemptions. Option two, keeping the deck and patio exemption with a little bit of clarity. And then option three, having both exemptions remain, but adding clarity to the pervious pavers that just talk about a minimum void space in the system, talking about impervious underlayments prohibited without drain systems that you have to demonstrate, and then just kind of calling out the retention capacity of the system being that 100-year storm event. And those two kind of tangible numbers we did base on Aspen's regulations. So Aspen does use the 20% void space for their paver systems, not their cobble systems or grass systems, but their permeable paving systems. And so that was just a tangible number. I didn't see a tangible number like that in any other jurisdiction that I looked at. So I thought that that was at least something that the kind of private sector and the developers and builders can respond to and at least know what they need to shoot for. So with that, that's kind of some of the changes. We're happy to take additional feedback and make additional revisions. If the Planning Commission feels strongly one way or the other, but if you're really in favor of any one option, we're happy to entertain a motion to move one of the options forward. And so I believe, let me see if I can pull that up. Yep. And so the first recommended motion in the staff report is just kind of moving forward one of the options, just fill in the blank, option 1, 2, 3. And the second is continuing the public hearing to the October 26th meeting and make any revisions necessary. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. This is a notice public hearing, so all of the members of the public can speak on this.
Well, sweet. Thank you, Jared. Questions for staff?
I got a question.
Yeah.
So like option 1, 2, and 3 seem to be like, as they get more complex, do they represent like staff's I guess hierarchy of like what you guys would prefer? Or if we're here to make a suggestion on them, I guess I'm a little unclear on what the options represent, if that's for us or for Board of Trustees to decide upon.
Yeah, it's for you guys. I think we as staff are comfortable implementing any one of these three options. And any one of these three options probably with tweaks to them. I think by and large, what the options represent is a little more clarity to the regulations so that we staff aren't having to interpret something, and so that an architect or contractor can look at this section and can just present a code compliant option. the three, are really just, they're not presented in any specific preference from staff. It's really just most simplistic to most complex, if you will. And then I would say they do have the inverse effect of the most simplistic is probably going to have the greatest impact on what can be built on a site today. Just because it's going to limit some of what today are being counted as pervious portions of a lot. Whereas option 3 is going to stay very much in line with what could be built today. There probably is going to be a very negligible impact on the type of development or density or intensity of development, given all of the lot coverage exemptions are being carried forward. Does that answer your question, Jarrett?
Yeah, yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right. Let's see. So we have to open this up to the public. So we'll do that now. We will open this up to the public. If anybody would like to comment. Nobody online. But we don't want to close the public hearing though. I guess we need to decide on if we're going to continue the public hearing or not.
Correct.
So we'll hold off on that for now and we'll just discuss between all of us. And then if we decide that we want to make a recommendation, then we'll also have to close the public hearing. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, what do you guys think? I mean, do we want to just kind of like go around and see which option everybody likes? Jess, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'm good with option 1 or option 2.
1 or option 2. Okay.
I like it. I like 3, but the 20% total void space I thought was a little.
We don't have a microphone for Sydney.
You got to turn on your microphone. They can't hear you.
Is that on? Yeah, the 20% total void space, I just thought that could be interpreted different ways. Like, you have 100 square foot paver space, you need 20 square feet. A void space, you could put it in one big void, or, I think people could work that. So I think 2, I'm drawn to number 2.
Jarrett.
I like 2 and 3. I think limiting how much like driveway and stuff like that is something that I really like about those 2 options. It's basically like, I keep thinking back to what I see in my hometown of people with just gigantic driveways and things like that. So I think those are my 2 preferences. 3 is a little strict, but I do like the clarifications of, the retention, void spaces, underlayment, everything like that. It really makes it very clear as to what you should be doing instead of kind of leaving it open to interpretation. I think my only hesitation with option 3 is that that could incur costs to people who, it might be a decision driver kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Given labor and everything like that these days.
Sure. Thanks, Jared. Jeff?
Yeah, I appreciated the work staff put into option 3 and borrowing from some of the other communities. Especially with drainage, underlayment, and void spaces, but this is a little outside of my swing plane, so to speak. So I'm happy to hear from the designers and engineers who could implement this and take your direction.
Sure. I guess for the most part, I would say that it's funny because I almost find that option 1 and option 2, I almost feel like they're so simple that it almost leads to more, it's still leading to questions, I suppose. Which I don't know, I guess it might just be because it's my field. I also I kind of feel that way about option 3 as well. Like I almost feel like we need to make a couple clarifications as to what is considered pervious and what is impervious. Because, you know, I mean, a lot of people, and I know that this was brought up at the last meeting, was like a gravel driveway. Is that considered pervious, impervious? And, you know, I'd almost say that having a table of what is considered pervious and what is considered impervious within it, I think in a way, I feel like that would almost clean up a good chunk of the questions about what fits into that. Because, oh yeah, can I put gravel along the entire strip on the side of my house and that would be considered pervious? But since it's almost a parking space, does that mean that it's impervious? And that's going to eat up within my percentage. So, I mean, I guess personally, I would lean towards option 3 just because I feel like in this case, I feel like the more explanation there is, kind of the better. I know that it's a lot of verbiage, but at the same time, if you are trying to like figure out what the line is, I think that option 3 helps to kind of set that a little bit better. And you know, I do agree. I do think that like the 20% for the void space, I actually don't know if that's referring to the void space between the gravel or is it the void space between the pavers? Which, you know, I don't even think we'd have to call out what the void space is, but like between the gravel, they can, you know, if it's an engineered design, they'd call out whatever material they're using underneath what the void space would be. So in a way, I don't feel like that's necessary to have on there. I think if it's approved pervious system, then, you know, I mean, we could say the void space between the pavers, we could include that to be like, I don't know, 8 or 10%. It doesn't have to be much.
So the intent was the void space between the pavers.
Okay.
So if 20% is not the right number, I'm
Sure.
happy to entertain a different number. I just but that was the intent of when someone comes and says, here's our pervious paving system, and it says, you know, the system is installed in a way that has, you know, a 1/4 inch between every paver that creates X% void space there. And so that was the intent.
Okay, gotcha. And, you know, we really don't have to dwell on that too much. We can definitely figure out what that number has to be or something like that if we do decide to go this route. I think the big thing with option 3 is the, you know, up to 10%. It can increase over the 60% by 10% to kind of like 70% of like driving space or something like that, correct?
So, yeah, that's kind of it's kind of like the tricky way of how both the deck and patio and pervious driveway kind of work. So yes, I don't know, I didn't run the numbers exactly, but for simple math, you know, if your lot has 60% lot coverage with these two 10% allowances, you're netting out at a real lot coverage or a true lot coverage of say 65, 70, 75%, whatever that is, once you leverage those two percentages, because the 10% of the floor area of the dwelling generally can add another, say, 500 square feet. And then a lot of what we've seen with these driveways are there, getting roughly what, 1,100 square feet, give or take, in pervious
Mhm.
paving systems.
And I mean, I guess the reason why I kind of want to push for this, I guess, is because I feel like with how we're pushing ADUs so much right now, we still have to figure out parking for those ADUs. And that does get pretty tight on some of these lots in town. And I mean, I feel like it's already been an issue with previous ADU projects that they can't fit another parking space in because of their impervious area. So in a way, this little loophole right here is how you can still get those parking spaces for those ADUs while not increasing the imperviousness. That's, I mean, I guess I'd be all right with not having this in there if we had some different verbiage to where it's like, hey, look, we'll give you an additional 10% of impervious area if it's for an ADU. Because I don't want to see us like choosing option 1 and option 2, stopping people from doing ADUs, I guess.
So would Jay, would that be something? So it's a little bit of a relation here, but in Aspen, when you have a duplex, you're granted more of an exemption for garage spaces or parking and things like that. If that was sort of like what you're getting at here with, if you're doing an ADU, your impervious goes up, or are you saying that we would, I guess I'm a little confused as what you're trying to get at with that. Like, do you give them more, or do you create a little bit more of these exemptions and rules and clarifications to let them stretch the rules?
Right. Yeah. I mean, really, I think that so in that option 3, that last item in there, that's option F, I believe.
G.
It is G now. Yes. Sorry, my computer fell asleep. But that up to 10% impervious surface, that allows them to, if they've already maxed out at 60%, then they can still put in a driving surface that would be a pervious system, but they can still fit a driveway in there. So I think that option 3 is allowing ADUs easier than the other options. If
Great.
that makes sense.
We're aligned in that. I fully agree. I think what you're saying though, originally, with adding some either definitions or just some further clarifications of like what is pervious, what is not pervious, it would give a lot more people a little bit better of an understanding to like what they actually can do. Otherwise, people are just going to start throwing down like river rock on top of the grass and calling that an impervious system.
I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
I think your point, Jay, on listing what's impervious, what's not just examples, even not like a well-defined list that applicants would have to operate within, but some descriptive language like pavers with a 20% void would be considered pervious. Where I get confused, where I'm thinking staff did good work to develop that section G and option 3, but it still would only apply to that 10% if you hit your limits. Like an applicant, and maybe Jared, this is a question directed to you. If an applicant came in with a completely pervious driveway in order to stay below their impervious lot coverage limits, would any of those other sections prevent them from doing that? Parking areas, driveways, regardless of surface materials, means any driveway would, even if it's a pervious driveway.
Correct. So how it's implemented currently is every driveway, 100% of the driveway is counted as impervious, regardless of whether it's concrete, gravel, pervious paver. And then, if needed, the architect or builder, whomever, would request that 10% exemption, and a portion of that driveway could be considered pervious if it meets the criteria of G. But yeah, I think the intent of that is so that you don't have people, people building massive areas of driveway which appear to be pervious regardless of how they're built, that limit kind of the landscaped or non-developed portions of the site. And just saying, well, it's all pervious pavers, so it's all pervious. And so we can do, although we only need a 1,000 square foot driveway, we're going to develop a 3,000 square foot driveway so that we can have all of our campers and toys and whatever else parking there. If that answers your question, Jeff. And
Yeah, that I remember us having this conversation earlier, but that clarity really helps.
yeah, and to be honest, what we're really seeing is more of the buildings are kind of getting designed very close to that maximum impervious lot coverage number. And then landscape architects are having to come in at the end and try to figure out how to work within a very small area. And I would say 90% of the recent homes in RVR are maxing out both 10% exemptions.
And in doing so, they're not meeting a real pervious standard, so to speak. I mean, this is where we discussed not having any control over the underlayment or the void space, and you could, it's basically an aesthetic difference, and that's it. It's not really performing as pervious material.
Yeah, those were some of the conversations from the last meeting. Yep.
Okay, thanks. It kind of changes my opinion on whether G and that exemption should be included. Because of the application, because of the simplified application that you guys are looking for from staff responsibilities. But are we gonna see a lot of backlash because we're already hitting these impervious lot coverage numbers? Is there any further discussion over what is the name of that table 372 for maximum lot coverage numbers? You're not suggesting any changes to 372 in the UDC?
Not at the moment. That was something that was brought up at the last hearing, and I think I was just hesitant to recommend any changes to that without, direction from this body on kind of what option is best. I would hate to see us say, let's do option 3, which is largely the status quo, and then give everybody a 5% lot coverage bump. But it may be worthwhile if option 1 or option 2 are chosen to say maybe it's, doing some thought exercises on what that impact of driveway is, and maybe, or driveway and patio, and maybe bumping lot coverage figures slightly kind of in a commensurate way, and say, well, you now just have to capture all of this, but we recognize that, and you could get an additional couple percentage in lot coverage.
This is a tricky thing because, this is just a tricky one because I feel like it's we're battling two different situations. We're battling the small properties that are like trying to, just fit on their lots. And then we're also dealing with, the RVR group where it's like, they're just maximizing everything that they can.
That's where the table comes into play, right, Jay?
I'm sorry?
I mean, that's where the table really comes into play, doesn't it? Like, if you wanted to ensure that an infill project didn't run into an impervious lot coverage restriction, that could apply to only the less than 4,000 square foot lots
Mhm.
or something like, if my math is right, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, that is an option that could be pursued of saying, well, the driveway exemption, as just an example, it's only applicable to lots in certain zone districts or lots under a certain size are only applicable to lot coverage percentages
Mhm.
at or below a certain number or at or above a certain number. So, you basically say this isn't an option for the large lots with 25% lot coverage, but it is an option for the small lots with 45, 50% lot coverage.
Right. Yeah, honestly, I like that a lot.
Is there a
How about
way
you, Julie, like
to,
that? Sorry.
is there a way to include increasing the amount of impervious surface just for ADUs? Like, can we not have it in this, but have it in the code around ADUs? Where if you're doing an ADU, you can increase your impervious lot coverage to create parking.
Mhm. Certainly.
So that we are still controlling what we want to control. We're still regulating the things we want to regulate, but we're not hindering people from creating ADUs. So it doesn't come in this section, but it comes in where we're regulating ADUs.
Mhm.
Or-
Certainly. And we would probably cross-reference it in this section just to help. But yes, if you wanted to provide a bump in lot coverage for an ADU for the purposes of installing a parking space, I think that's certainly something that could be considered. I think the one potential threat to that would be someone pursues an ADU, gets the lot coverage bump, then gets rid of the ADU, right? And so then you just have some situations where you're essentially creating some non-conformities where the lot would then have to rectify that in the future if some other development application would occur, where they might have to remove improvements to get back under the lot coverage. And that's something that we see in other just projects today in town. So it's not completely uncommon, but yeah.
Jared, are you referencing like they build the ADU and then demolish it, or is it the post CO transition? Kind of
Yeah,
thing?
it could, my scenario was more of, you build the ADU, the property transfers to a new property owner. They don't necessarily want an ADU. So they pull it into the house and just say, we want the extra basement space or, extra bedrooms. And then it's no longer an ADU. And it could be that at the building permit at that time, or when a future permit's requested, that we have to rectify that.
And I guess I'm not too familiar with our ADU process, but do we have like separate addresses for ADUs? Like instead of like just apartment A or apartment B, it would be like, I don't know, 470 and 472.
No, so the ADUs can't be legally separated. So they're all part of the one property. They can't be metered separately. And Garfield County's addressing preferences so far have been the ADU is unit A or unit 1, or, delineating it that way.
Gotcha.
And that is a conversation that will come back. So ADU regulations are next-ish on the list of code amendments to discuss. And so, I think it is pertinent if the planning commission does want to wrap in some of these lot coverages to specifically say to incentivize ADUs. I think it's something that we could address here and then address in the ADU regulations as well.
Yeah, I wonder if this additional parking area thing, like, I don't know if it belongs in these exemptions and like explanations and things like that. I wonder if it lives best in 372 in that table, like like without ADU, with ADU zone district, or this lot size, or things like that. I wonder if that's where that's best kept. I think that would be a real easy way to scale things as well too, of like, this is how much area in this zone district or within this lot size or something like that. I think it'd be easy to scale for people.
I got another question real quick, probably for Jared. Am I right to think that most of the kind of driveway 10% exemptions being used on lot sizes larger than 10,000 square feet? So in that like 35 to 40% range on 372?
Yeah, I would say probably the majority are on those larger lots and lower lot coverages, but we have seen some other properties kind of more in Old Town that are on more normal town lots start to bump up against their lot coverage a little bit and consider pervious pavers.
Normal town lots are usually between like 5,000 square feet, and I don't know, in Old Town they're probably less than a quarter acre, right? So up to 10,000, maybe 5 to 10,000.
Yeah, I would say roughly 10 by or 100 by 100 or 50 by 100, kind of somewhere in that range.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to determine if there was a section in the far left column of 372 that we were going to discuss for infill purposes, like if we were to raise the maximum impervious lot coverage percentage straight up on smaller lots by a couple percent, would it actually have the effect of making it easier on folks to establish their alternative parking for ADUs, or does it have a different effect that I'm just missing?
I think if you tie it to ADUs specifically, that would, a couple things. I think that would align with something that the trustees have expressed in their ADU work session of what can the town do to encourage more ADUs. And I think that could be, an appropriate way. I know part of the conversation in that will be talking about what is the appropriate parking requirement for ADUs. And so, saying, well, we can have a ADU, we still want to see parking for ADUs, but we'll give a lot coverage bonus to compensate for that, I think could kind of hit two birds with one stone. But, I'd hate to see it just applied to a lot size, because I could see lots within very similar subdivisions, being maybe just beyond that lot size requirement, but having a lot of the exact same characteristics, wanting to do an ADU where, it could be very appropriate. What it would kind of limit would be, some of the PUDs where ADUs are restricted or not as widely accepted, like an RVR or some of Roaring Fork Village and things like that.
Mhm.
No, great. Thanks. That's really helpful. Thanks.
I think if our intent is to encourage ADUs, it should be linked directly to ADUs so that there's not unintended consequences down the road.
Mhm. I think that Jared did bring up a good point though about, I don't know, I guess we're getting into the realm where, I don't know, we're having, no offense to Jared, but I mean, a lot of the people around here are hiring architects to maximize what they can get out of their property. And they're very good at their job. They're going to find whatever loophole they can to, try and maximize that, whether that is to temporarily have an ADU until they get a CO and then they just open up a door and then their house is that much bigger. I don't like to think that way, but at the same time, I think we need to be prepared for that sort of thing because that is hitting Carbondale. And I think we do have to kind of take that seriously, I guess.
I think that it's hard to regulate some future possibility that we have no control over. It's
True.
like where you say an ADU, you can't have an ADU, but someone builds a mother-in-law suite and doesn't put an oven in it.
Mhm.
And then they get CO and they do that.
Right.
So we can only control so much. And I think I don't like it when the regulations are for some future possibility
Mhm.
that you're like saying that you can't have this because you might be a criminal. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just want to be careful with thinking like that. That's on the homeowner then. When they try to pull a permit for something else, then they're going to have to rectify it.
Uh-huh.
And then that's their responsibility.
Yeah. That makes sense. So, I mean, really, it seems like for the most part, it seems like we would all be all right with, it sounds like everybody would lean towards number 2. I think everybody was in agreement that number 2 was valid, but I think we're looking for something that's a little more that would be supplemental to encouraging ADUs. Whether it is that part of option 3 that would be for smaller lots, or if that would actually be an application to specifically just ADUs.
So I have a process question. If we're not talking about ADUs and we're just talking about impervious lot coverage, can we move toward an option 2? And then when we do ADUs, add an exemption or something to this part of, like, whatever we put in the ADU would then, in the ADU regulations would then show in this section as well.
Yeah, I think we could do it either way. I don't have a hesitation of saying we want to provide a bonus for ADUs and addressing that now. And when we discuss ADU regulations, cross-referencing the bonus and doing that, I'm also comfortable saying let's figure out what the number is when we do ADUs. You know, it sounded like, it sounded like what I heard from the majority of the planning commission was this up to 10% seemed like a reasonable exemption if it was for an ADU. And so I think we could just fine tune the language in old F, new G subsection and just say, you know, how do we further tie that to just an ADU, not any pervious paving system for any project. And then, you know, I think my question would be, would you still want some sort of standards applied to that? Or do we not care if it's a pervious paving system? We just will say, you can get a lot coverage bonus for the ADU.
Yeah, so
Period.
that was my thought, is that I think we should not have the requirement of a pervious paving system for an ADU.
Mhm.
That if someone wants to put in concrete or gravel or
Mhm.
asphalt or whatever for the parking for an ADU, that just comes with their bonus.
Mhm.
Instead of making them go through this, because I think if you have to get an architect involved and make sure that the pervious paving system is appropriate and meets the regulations, that's a cost to someone who's trying to just put an ADU in.
Mhm.
So then it sort of hinders the bonus that we're trying to offer someone who's doing an ADU. So my thought would be that if we're going to make this about ADUs, it should just be that you get a bonus and you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. The pervious paver systems, they're expensive.
Mhm.
So, and then, you know, having it transition into the rest of their driveway and everything like that is just,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, whatever we can do to simplify it for ADUs, because building an ADU is ridiculously expensive right now.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're justifying it already. So therefore, in a way, whatever we can do to make it so that they can afford it,
Mhm.
I'm all for it. So I mean, I guess the
Just
question is then, you know, does that mean we're omitting option 3? Because option 3 is pretty much that the addition of that 10% sort of thing. And we're just saying that for, you know, it'd be pretty much option 2, but then we're also saying that parking spaces, the parking spaces required for an ADU can be exempt from this, just to encourage the ADUs.
Or you put a number to it. You
Mhm.
get, if you are building an ADU, you get 10% more impervious lot coverage for parking. Like we could probably even hold it to that so that it's not used for something else, you know, so that they're not putting a concrete patio in the back that they say is for an ADU, but it's really for the main home, or I don't know.
It
Right.
could be for, you know, parking and ADU access, right? So if you need
Right.
a sidewalk or steps or something like that to access the ADU, you say it's really just tied to those two things, and it's again, up to the 10% bonus.
Uh-huh.
And is 10% the appropriate number? Is that enough to get you? Yeah.
We'd probably want to just run a few numbers with some 10 by 20 parking spaces and kind of look at how that would net out on some of these smaller lots.
Yeah.
Just to see if that's really a appropriate number.
Right. I mean, in a way, I almost feel like it's not like, if you have a massive lot, then you would just do an ADU so that you could have 2,000 extra square feet to make impervious and do whatever you want with it. Like you
Right.
said, you know, making a patio that is for the ADU, but then you just have an additional patio. So I don't know, I'd almost stick more to a hard number as opposed to a percentage. Just because on a small lot, like let's say you have 4,000 square feet, 10% of that is 400. I guess that would be 2 parking spaces.
Yeah.
And you can
But-
use it, if you're only putting in 1 parking space, you can use it for like stairs or access,
Mhm.
sidewalk. Some sort of like, if you're putting in an ADA accessible ADU, then you're gonna need some sort of ramp or, I don't know, I think we should try to encourage, I like the parking and access.
Yeah,
I think it, I don't know if it should be a percentage kind of thing. I think it should be like a, excuse me. I think it should be like a, for this many square foot, it's 250 square feet, or for this many, it's 500, whatever. It's that kind of a set scale. It's not a percentage sort of thing.
And I think that could easily be tied to the number of parking spaces provided, right? A 10 by 20 parking space, 200 square feet, and whether you want to say it's 250 if you provide 1 or 275, or, I think we could nitpick those numbers a little bit, and you
Mhm.
basically get double that if you are providing 2 parking spaces.
Because I think if someone is on a small lot and they're putting an ADU above their garage, so it's not increasing their impervious lot coverage, or they're really close anyway, because it's a small lot, if you specify that you can have, it's not a percent, it's like, I don't know. Square footage makes sense to me. 'Cause
Yeah.
we know how big a parking spot is. We know how wide a sidewalk is.
I mean, maybe it's something to the text, something to the simplification that any necessary hardscaping for an ADU could be exempt. Because then it does allow like, oh, well, if they do want ADA access, then that's a lot more impervious area.
Mhm.
But, if that's necessary to get that up to their ADU, then, or, I guess also like, what is it? You need to have the required outdoor space for an ADU as well. I guess making sure that kind of all of those are incorporated into it.
Outdoor space is easy though, without affecting impervious. A deck.
A deck, but if it's ground level, then you have to do,
You could still do a deck. It's over grass.
Or a fenced in
Yard.
kind of a yard.
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think we can probably take this feedback and maybe focus on that option 2. And take some of the other items about, potentially a table, looking at the table 372, adding some additional cross references and focus on the option 2 with some more thought on the ADU exemption, and try to provide some more numbers versus percentages. If that sounds acceptable to you all.
Sounds good to me.
So you're saying you're gonna put it in table 372? Or reference?
I probably want to think about that, at least a reference. That's why I'd prefer to continue this, and so I can
Okay.
come back with something
Mhm.
clean for you guys to look at and review.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like that.
Jarrett, Jeff, how do you feel about the direction this has gone?
Sounds good.
I feel good about it too. Also, Jay, it's not offensive for the comment you made earlier. It's not a future problem. It's an existing problem. It happens a lot.
What makes you good at your job, Jarrett?
I'm
Finding loopholes?
fantastic at my job.
Thank you guys though for being patient with us and kind of
course.
working around all those things. I know it's a lot of work on your end though too. Just like, oh, hey, can we go with this option, but then add all these other things to it. So
Can you
I
also do this
appreciate
and this
your-
and this?
I appreciate your flexibility.
I mean, in all honesty, I'm trying to make it so I can't break it. You know, if I can't figure it out, that makes it really hard.
Well, I think it keeps it simple too.
Mhm.
It achieves both things. It's easy to apply
Mhm.
in your office, and it's easy for a normal homeowner to
Mhm.
comply with it.
Mhm.
Which is, we want both of those things.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think it does what we are looking for.
I agree. I think it's heading in a good direction. So, yeah, thank you guys. I guess with that, should we just move on to then, so then I guess we'd be continuing this to the next meeting?
Yes, we could continue this to the October 26th meeting. The other option would be November 9th, but I think we can probably come back with some modifications for you guys by the October 26th meeting. I will not be here in person, but I'd be happy to hop on Zoom.
I will not be here in person or on Zoom for that meeting.
I mean, do you guys want more time to kind of work through this?
Yeah, we have 2 TBDs coming up here, so I don't think there's any rush.
Yeah, I mean, we could move it to,
I selfishly want to move it.
we can move it to November 9th. I'm just trying to look at the calendar. So 9th, we don't have a second meeting in November. So, yeah, it would have to be November 9th would be the next one.
Uh-huh.
Or we're looking at December. And there's no huge rush to this. So if you guys want to kick it down the road, we have regulations that we can apply. We're just trying to find a way to improve upon those regulations and
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I
And
guess.
Jared,
I
I
guess
think
my
this is
question
up
would
to
be,
your
would
discretion.
this stop the, like, by us moving it by those 2 weeks, is that gonna stop the Board of Trustees by getting this done by the end of the year?
Yeah, there's no time frame on the Board of Trustees. This is, and in fact, this isn't something that they've decreed we look at. This is just something that we staff brought up and said, could this be better? So, yeah, that there's no has to be done by the end of the year situation.
Okay. Sorry, Jarrett or Jeff, did you say something?
I did. I was like, I think this is up to staff's discretion. Like if we're rushing them, then yeah, let's keep it at the 9th. And if we're confident that we can meet that deadline, then the 26th, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and make orders or anything like that. I feel like,
I think the 9th is fine.
Okay,
We
okay,
can do the
Great.
9th and yeah.
sure. Well, let's stick with that then, the November 9th. Would anybody be able to make the motion to continue the public hearing?
I'll move to continue the public hearing to November 9th, 2023 for amendments to the Unified Development Code related to impervious lot coverage and section 3.8.5.
And a
Second.
second?
Ah.
That was
Good
Jeff.
luck.
That was Jeff. Okay. Jess made the motion. Jeff seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
hi.
All right. Awesome. Great. Staff updates.
Let's see. So Tuesday, we have a joint work session with the Board of Trustees. At the trustees work sessions, there's a couple items that may be of interest to you all. First is they want to have a work session on childcare regulations. So they just want to understand what our current regulations are, what other communities are doing. So that's going to be the first half hour from 6 to 6:30, I believe. And then after that will be the joint work session with the Planning Commission on the Town Center project. And so Art Space, Building Seed, and JV D'Souza Architects will be here to kind of update you and the trustees on what they've heard from the first phase of public outreach and the 2 design charrettes that they've done, and where they believe the community has kind of said, look at these areas, or maybe look at these potential exemptions or alternative compliances or changing code for this type of a project. And so, yeah, we'd love to have you all. I believe we've invited you all. I don't know if we sent you, did we send the?
I did not.
Okay, we can send you guys all the email tomorrow just with the packet and a quick reminder, but yeah, we'd love to have you guys there, and you guys have been specifically requested.
Shall be summoned.
So yeah, phone in, here in person, whatever works for you guys. Trying to think other than that, we don't have anything currently planned for the October 26th meeting. So we could look to cancel that meeting.
Yep.
So I'd say kind of pencil that. If something does pop up and there's a critical need, we'll let you guys know. But you know, probably can let you know here in a week or so definitively on that. And then as of today, right now, we're just looking at impervious lot coverage for November 9th. And then we'll also have the upcoming, or the 2024. I'm going to learn words and dates and times and all of these things by the end of this meeting.
They're
The
overrated.
2024 P&Z calendar. So we put together the calendar. We have a few questions for you all about meetings and see if we want to hold one or cancel it, given some things like spring break for schools and Thanksgiving Day, you know, little things like that.
Just scrap the one right before. Don't
But yeah, I think that's all. I don't know if you have anything else, Kay. As you guys can see, Jeff was reappointed to the Planning Commission. So welcome back, Jeff. The other 2 applicants, the board of trustees were very complimentary of, and encouraged them to apply for future openings and other opportunities that the town might have. So yeah, hopefully they can find a future opportunity to volunteer with the town. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Anything for us? Besides, Jess won't be here at the potentially canceled 26th meeting.
Correct.
No comments.
Sphere.
All right, a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Later, y'all.